Welcome, Ellen Powell, CEO of Reddit.
Good to see you.
How you doing? Again, I guess full disclosure, Reddit was a YC company, but we put a little bit of money in that Yishan let me invest a few years ago. So we are a small investor in Reddit also.
Yes.
I guess I will jump right into it. Ellen, what have you been doing over the last 6 months or so?
It's funny you ask.
I know.
Yeah. I've been CEO of Reddit. I took on the role around the middle of November, and we've been just moving forward and hiring people and building the company and trying to grow.
Awesome. And you are growing. Reddit's a monster. I think most people don't always know about that.
It's 172 or 73 million monthly uniques. More than 100 million of them are in the U.S., so we're pretty big for properties in the U.S.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And not all of the content is cat memes, but maybe a few, perhaps.
There are a few. A lot of people like cats.
So we're going to talk a lot about different types of diversity issues today. This is maybe one session on that topic. First, bubble heat index. Where are we? 10, it's about to blow. 1, it's all fine.
It depends on the company. And
It depends.
sector,
Come on.
Yeah, I think for Reddit, we're doing well. We're pretty happy. I think for companies that are looking at the long term, I think things are going to do well. Technology is adding a ton of value. I think a lot of the valuations are really high, though. And if
Long-term bullish.
I'm long-term bullish. Short-term, I don't know.
If you were investing in a random collection of companies available to you in Silicon Valley right now, do you think that's a good bet or not a good bet?
I think if you're investing in the top 10% of companies, that's a great bet. If you're investing in
Okay, can you tell me which ones those are?
I know, but it's but I mean, if you're looking at like really the best people and the best and the best companies that are getting funding from the top tier venture capital firms, they a bunch of them will do well. So if
good deals will do well, but the rest of the market not so well. Same story as always.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but
I don't think I got an answer there, but
no, I think there. We keep saying there's a bubble, but it still hasn't happened. And I think long term, if you're not looking to try to exit in the next year or two, you're going to do okay.
Okay. Winter might be coming, but I've got a hot spring over here.
Also, I'm so focused on just building Reddit, I haven't really been paying attention.
Good answer.
Thank you. As an investor, you should be happy.
Absolutely. I've heard there might be a challenge of diversity here in the investor ecosystem, maybe in a couple different ways.
I'm looking around. You actually have a pretty good representation, though, compared to other conferences I've been at.
Women in the room, please self-identify. Raise your hands.
Yeah.
It's
you saved
20%, not 30. Maybe
I was
it's 30%.
say like a quarter. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's just all our team. All right, so women at VC firms, I don't know where we got this stat, but approximately 6%. That actually sounds high.
I think that's Babson College. That's a stat from
Is that right?
recent, right? Babson College did 10% in 19.
Heidi, what do you think? Is that the right number? No. 6%. Okay, that's 3 out of 50, right? So average VC firm of 8 people, that would be 0.
Which sounds about right.
Right, which sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think Greylock woke up and smelled the coffee. They just hired somebody.
I saw that.
Yes.
Congratulations to them.
Sorry, Sarah Tavel from Pinterest, right? There's still a bunch of VC firms out there that don't have any women or even any non-white male people who didn't go to MIT or Harvard or Stanford. Or Penn, maybe Penn, sorry. Do you think this is a problem?
Are you really asking me that?
Yeah. I know.
Yes,
What should the number be? Is there a right number?
I mean, ideally, at some point, it gets to 50%. I mean, like the woman coming out.
50%, wow.
That's the world. It should reflect the world. You're reflecting the world that you're in.
Damn
The people who are buying things. The people who
Probably
are
should be
doing
more than
things.
50%. Women buy more things. Sorry, that wasn't a sexist remark. That was supposed to be a stat, but oh shit.
He said it, not me.
I'm in it already. Wow, today's gonna be fun. Okay. When you're in a hole, stop digging. All right, women founders or CEOs, a little bit better. According to Crunchbase, if Janae is here, the number went up. There was some stat for diversity that actually got better. 18% of some database of Crunchbase, I guess, women founders or CEO, which is up from 9.5% in 2009. So in 5 years, according to people who list their data on Crunchbase, we've doubled number of women founders. Do you think that's correct?
I got the same stat, so
Yeah.
I think it's correct that
I think it's
Crunchbase
correct.
put that out there. But
I mean, I generally feel like I don't know, we see more women founders now than 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
I agree, and I'm seeing more women CEOs. I'm seeing more
Right.
women who are investing. But it's sometimes not always in the mainstream of it.
Why do you think the VC issue is going in the wrong direction or not working, and the founder issue seems to be getting better?
So one of the things I heard was that first stat from 1999 included like operations people. So that if your CFO was a woman, she got included in
Right.
the stats. And then the more recent number is just the people who are actually investing.
Our female VCs went from 5% to 7.5%. We hired a receptionist part-time.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. Or we brought in a junior associate. So
Right, who
our
doesn't make
managing
any
partners are all
decisions.
white men, but we've got one junior person who's going to be here for 2 years, and we're going to use her stat as much as we can.
Okay, so probably decision makers is really where we should be looking at. Do you think there's more female decision makers at VC firms now than 5 years ago, or not? Anecdotally?
There was a time when firms started shrinking, and a lot of the women were either pushed out or left at that time. So I actually think there are a little bit fewer.
Okay, so that may be a little bit different issue, but you're saying that there was a pullback, let's say, 2003 to 2008.
So maybe a little after 2008, so
Probably
2009, 10.
It takes a while for LPs to wake up and realize that the crash happened, like 5 years.
Yep.
Then they pull back on asset allocation. Okay, so if there was a shrinkage in number of overall partners, maybe 2005 to 2010, that might have been overly indexed on women, is what you're saying.
Anecdotally, that's what it seemed like.
Okay. Do you think the prospects for starting a female-led VC firm are decent these days?
It seems like they're getting funded. It seems like people recognize that there's an opportunity that's being missed. There are a lot more women who are actually
Right.
starting companies and running companies.
Teresa and Jennifer started Aspect recently.
Right, Aileen Lee with Cowboy.
Aileen with Cowboy, and
And the
Penned
group
the
of
unicorn
women from
issue.
Twitter started investing.
the angel investment group that.
I don't remember the name.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
think
so
that's- we're gonna hear from
there's
them too.
opportunities, and these folks have great backgrounds, they're interested, they have great connections, they have great networks, so they should be easily able to get funding and to find investments and to do well. So I think that's a huge opportunity.
Right.
But it's weird that like women have to start their own firms to be
Yeah, it
successful.
kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So is this a pipeline issue? Soft bias. I guess, where do you think the problems are? Is it a problem that not enough women are trying to get into VC, or not that there's positions available, or people are not evaluating the right talent?
It's like everything across the board.
Everything.
So, there aren't women, like, there aren't girls who are going into school or to study these topics, and when they go there, it's not that welcoming, and then when they get out, they don't get the same jobs, and then when they get the jobs, they don't get the same opportunities, and they're, and then they never make it up to the top, and they can't bring in other women. It's
And
just
occasionally when they get
every single
there,
stage.
there's other challenges.
Yeah.
How do we change that?
I do think having these women-led firms will be helpful, because I do think they're going to be really successful. You've got some really talented people out there who
Right.
are going to go out there and have opportunities to succeed, and that will drive more people to go into the business. There aren't that many successful
Right.
role models out there, because there just aren't that many people who are out there.
Heidi.
Yes.
And
But- and
Esther,
we can name
Esther and
them,
a few.
right?
Right. The problem is
Heidi,
we
Esther.
know the same 3 to 5 people who've actually been doing that. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but yeah, there's not as many role models.
Yeah, and then there aren't that many people who go
Want to
into
deal with all
it
the
from that.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one of the major issues, is like where those positions are available, they're, well, I don't know the perspective, highly dangerous to your career if you like don't actually get the right opportunity, or it's a pain in the ass.
It's hard.
And being the
yeah.
first woman into an all-male firm has a lot of pressure on it, or at least one of the few.
Yeah, it's a big decision whether you want to do that.
Right. and probably decision-making ability is maybe always not so easy in those environments.
And it's hard to tell going in because everybody's so nice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I imagine, like anything, you're probably not going to figure it out until you've been there for 6 to 12 months. And if it's not the show that you thought it was going to be, you don't want to move out so quickly that damages your career either.
And then it takes a while for you to get an investment in, and then it takes a while for that investment to be successful. So you're there trying to build your career.
So is it safer as a woman then to be an angel investor or an advisor or board member than to be a VC? Is that chickening out, or is that
more likely to be successful? But it's also hard. Like at least in your kind of standard traditional VC firms, there's a little bit of there are other people who can help you. As an angel investor, I did some you're on your own for the most part.
You don't really get the chance to learn as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of actions we as a community can take? I guess let me ask you something. You have angel investments as well as other investments that you made while you were at Kleiner and other places?
I have some angel investments from after I left Kleiner.
Okay. Any of those investments have female CEOs and founders?
5 out of the 10.
5 out of 10. Wow, what an interesting
female
ratio.
CEOs, women CEOs, 5 of them, yeah.
Okay.
And they're all awesome.
Great. You encouraging any of those people to think about becoming VCs in their later stages of their careers?
We haven't talked about it yet. They're all, like me, just focused on building their companies.
Okay.
But I think all of them would be great.
I don't know if you want to say anything about the case or if you have any comments about that. Do you have anything you'd feel comfortable saying?
No, nothing new.
Okay.
But thanks for asking.
All right. Anything about the appeal or that?
No, nothing new, but thanks
Okay.
for asking
All right.
again.
Very good. You have an interesting policy at Reddit on salary negotiation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we are looking at finding better ways of negotiating salary with our candidates who are looking at working at Reddit. So we looked closely at the process, and this was actually something that Ishan started, and we took in and really moved forward with it. The idea that we should be paying people the fair salary. So going out, looking at market rates and figuring out what's the right rate to attract a top tier candidate. So we went out, we talked to all our VC firms, we got all the most recent market data, and we provide offers at the high end, and they're non-negotiable. So we'll talk to them, find out.
Do you think that's fair from the employee's perspective, that they don't get to negotiate?
Yes, because we're giving them the top amount that we would pay them. So we're not saying, hey, we're just going to try to get you at the rate that you're willing to come at. We're paying, in some cases, we're paying more than people actually asked for. And there was one case where somebody joined, and then we realized the offer was below market, and we adjusted.
So is there any intent behind that to level the playing field for people who don't negotiate or don't ask for salaries? Is this a gender issue or not?
There's some gender to it. The idea is to give everybody who comes in the fair salary. So whether it's men or women or minorities or non-minorities, it's the idea that when you're coming in and you're doing a certain amount of work, you should be paid the same amount for it. And there are some studies that say that women don't negotiate as well sometimes.
Or men are assholes and negotiate a lot more even if they don't deserve it.
Yeah, and also that they don't get penalized, but women get penalized when they ask for more.
So if you don't ask, then you're not going to get the extra bump. So in this case, you're not letting people ask, and you're overpaying, so you're getting people the same option whether they negotiate or not.
Yeah, and people won't get penalized for asking.
Okay. Any employee reactions to that? Were people okay with that?
I think so. I haven't heard any complaints. We're tracking it to see if it comes to a point where we see that candidates really want to negotiate and it's really important to them, we may revisit. But it's all an experiment to try to figure out how we create a more fair environment.
How do you try and anti-bias against your own sort of proclivities? If you're trying to be fair about hiring, whether that's for a VC job or for a startup or whatever, what can you do to make sure you're seeing a wider playing field and not, taking some intuition against, certain gender, color, race, religion, whatever? How would I do that? Do I put everybody behind a blind curtain and I mix their voice and I put carpet so I can't hear whether they have heels on or something? Like, how do I do that?
I think that for us, it's really we're kind of hiring as many people as we can. So the idea that we would turn somebody down because they don't look the right way is very hard to imagine, because we're really just looking for skilled employees.
Okay.
One of the ways that we try to bring more diversity in is we ask our recruiters to bring in candidates, widen the candidate pool. We're not looking to hire for a specific demographic, but we do want to see a pool that's reflective of the wider environment.
What are the stats for Reddit off the top of your head? Do you know percentage
The last
female,
time we
male?
looked, I think it was 14% women on our engineering team.
14%.
But
That's
it's a
not so
small
good,
number.
Ellen.
It's not great. Yeah, we're working on it. So we just hired a woman, Bethany Blount from Facebook, to be our VP of engineering, which is great.
Okay.
And yeah, so we think that if we can bring in leadership at the top, we'll be able to attract more people, and we'll be able to get.
So we'll talk about this more later this afternoon, but a lot of time people talk about diversity like women's the only issue in diversity. And there's a lot of other types of diversity
Yes.
to think about. So I'll ask you, how many African American or black people work at Reddit? How many Hispanic American or Hispanic people work at Reddit?
So we haven't counted. We have one African American engineer. We just hired a general counsel, Melissa Tidwell, who is an African American woman.
Right.
We have, I think, 3 other African Americans
Do you
on the
ask
team.
people to self-identify?
No.
Okay. How do you know? Is this a stat or a KPI that I should be considering? Am I more racist for asking people or not asking people?
I don't know. When I look around, I want to see diversity on the team, and that's how we kind of check in.
I'm pretty
on
sure
it.
there's no black people in Silicon Valley.
I think, are there any in the room here? Or it's
Well, we're trying. Yeah, a few.
all right. Okay.
Mostly speakers, I think, but
Yeah.
yeah, working on it.
It is very weird.
No, that was meant as a very insensitive joke. There are lots of black people in the Bay Area, although demographically speaking, there's a lot more in the southeast.
So my husband is black, and when we go around, often we'll be like, "Wow, he's the only black person in this restaurant,"
Right.
or "He's the only black person in this
Yeah.
movie theater." It is surprisingly not.
So I grew up on the
diverse.
East Coast, and even in West Virginia, where I was born, there were black people, and certainly in Maryland, between Baltimore and D.C., where I spent a lot of time, there's a lot of black people. When I moved out to California, I know there's black people here. I didn't run into them nearly as much. It seemed like there was much more like lines drawn about where people hung out in Oakland
Yeah.
and East Palo Alto. I know, but like I didn't run into them quite as much. It was a very different experience here than on the East Coast.
It's better in San Francisco than it is in the Peninsula. It's better in the East Bay than it is in San Francisco, but it is definitely better in parts of the East Coast than it is
Right.
out here.
I have a not so funny joke that I think I actually run into more Africans in the Valley than I do African Americans in the Valley sometimes.
I think that's true.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about that as much? Like, seems like gender and female. I think Cheryl's basically moved the female diversity issue to the forefront, but I don't feel like we talk as much about other types of diversity, whether that's color of skin, race, language, religion, sexual orientation and preference.
I think there's some people who are trying to bring it along and make it all like make it all bigger diversity issues.
I'm
so we
still
don't
a
focus
white
on one thing
male.
or other.
Last time I
Are
checked,
you?
anyway. I don't know,
All
maybe.
right.
I've occasionally been in Castro in a dress on October 31st. I'm not sure that really counts, but
That's why I'm confused.
yeah, right, definitely. I'm not trying to make a joke about this. I feel like this is a real issue that we don't talk about very much. It's very uncomfortable to talk about this.
It's hard because it's so complicated, and people are having a hard time. If you say something, then maybe you didn't bring in other types of minorities, other types of issues, and then you get some flack for that. And are you
Right.
being sensitive about all the other issues that are involved? So maybe it's just better to stay quiet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, me neither.
Right. I know you may not want to talk about some things for legal reasons and others, but I just want to say I really appreciate that you were brave enough to do some things, and I think there's a lot of people who appreciate that you did that shit.
Thanks. So I want to give credit to you.
You're the Snowden of our generation.
All right. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, I think so.
But I want to give you credit, because when things were starting out, I think a lot of people were really confused about what to think about what I was doing, and you were one of the first people who publicly supported me, so thank you for that.
I think you're a smart lady and you're very capable.
I appreciate that.
Anyway, we'll probably keep it at that for a little bit. So there's got to be some folks who want to ask Ellen some questions. I don't know if she'll jump into all of them, but if you guys want to ask her about a few things. In the back there, I think we've got one there. By the way, we've mentioned Yishan. I don't know if people know who we're talking about. Yishan Wong was an engineer, early engineer at PayPal and early engineer at Facebook that I met at PayPal, and then I think a lot of other folks. And he's helped train engineering practices at a lot of organizations. And then he was CEO at Reddit for a few years after Alexis.
He hired me, and and diversity was important to him, so he brought in a lot of folks into Reddit.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. Did we find the person who was raising their hand over there? Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for actually not just addressing the female issue, but the African American and Latino issue. I'm actually Latino. But I guess my question really is, are we asking this, or are we addressing this problem really the correct way? Because as much as it is a race issue, is it really not more of a class issue? Because you yourselves
Sure.
both brought up the fact that you can run into more African Americans in Oakland than you can in San Francisco. But if you look at the poverty levels in Oakland and the education levels in Oakland, there's very clearly a correlation there. So is really the bigger question we need to be asking ourselves, are we educating minorities enough? And obviously, white women are going to have an easier time than black women or Latino women, to bring them into the realm of not just venture capital, but also high tech, so that they can become and we can create a more diverse workplace. So is class really the larger and more important issue?
As a hillbilly from West Virginia, I would say there's not a lot of West Virginians in venture capital. We're underrepresented. I'm not sure how to address that completely. I think the question was maybe around, are we educating people about their opportunities? Are they stepping up? Or are you saying, are we educating people about
I guess
access?
it's kind of two levels, right? There's educating ourselves in this room that the question is not strictly about race. It's about race and how race relates to class, because class means I went to Harvard and MIT,
Right.
or I went to an East Coast school, and I've taken the right classes, and I have enough education to have an intelligent conversation about what a carry is. And that you can't separate race from class. So educating people on that level. And then the secondary part, I think, is really actually putting money into the education to help that diversity happen. And maybe that's through, funding companies that are doing this
Yeah.
type of thing.
I mean, I think venture capital is a little bit more specific, but probably at least on engineering and other areas, are we making those opportunities available to people in disadvantaged communities wherever they are, and are we creating role models? At least my perspective is I think a lot of it is just tweaking the environment so that the role models are more visible, because I think that if you're not surrounded by, if you don't see people who look like you doing those things, you don't feel like those opportunities are available. And so, there are women who are obviously engineers and founders of companies, but if I don't see them, then as a woman, I might not know that's a career path.
Yeah, I actually just had a conversation with somebody from the White House about this. The idea that we're trying to open up the pipeline, but that pipeline should also be open to people from different classes. So there's a lot of opportunities like code.org, and they're focused on all of these different schools and bringing in computing and these opportunities at a much earlier age, and that should also focus on schools all over the place in Oakland, in different areas, and not just that the gender issue in general, but also the class issues.
I mean, I think Mitch and Frida Kapoor and the Kapoor Institute have done a lot of work all over the valley, but particularly in Oakland. I know Andreessen Horowitz also has made opportunities available because of stuff Ben was doing. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we 500 are trying to look a little bit more diverse, but we don't have anybody African American on the team right now. We have an intern who's from Nigeria, who went to my college, but we're under-indexed on that front. I feel like, we don't talk about the issue enough, and there's just a lot of people in the Valley who don't care to talk about it very much. They don't think it's a problem, I guess.
Or they're uncomfortable. Or both.
Not uncomfortable enough, I guess, is my point, to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think, until somebody like Cheryl steps in and really makes it a point, at least for that particular issue, women, I think, nobody else does that. I don't know if we've had the equivalent Sheryl Sandberg yet in a few other areas, but maybe we're working on that.
Or people aren't listening.
Yeah.
It's not packaged the way they want to hear it.
Probably not. I think one thing I feel like is, at least for venture capital, it's hard for people to create decision-making and authority and power roles that aren't like 1/4 of the firm. And if there were ways for most VCs to say, why don't we take 5% to 10% of our capital and make that available for 10 people who are younger in the firm, or maybe not the same color or gender or race, to make those decisions. I feel like it's making the decisions that actually changes the behavior, not that I just happen to go interview some people who are different color or shape or size than I'm used to. And so unless you structure decision making for a small percentage of capital being allocated, you're never going to tip the whole process.
It's a decision making and getting the credit for it.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
Yeah.
Some people are making the decisions but not getting that
Yeah.
credit. Question coming here.
Some people say the problem really needs to start when, particularly with females, when they're younger. I've got 4 girls, and traditional academia doesn't really open up opportunities for computer science, technology, I'm talking about in grade school. If you had a magic wand, how would you fix that?
Question was around, I've got 4 girls who are maybe not seeing opportunities in engineering or computer science. Really?
Well, in grade school, it's like,
Yeah. You live here in the Bay Area or somewhere else?
no, Nebraska.
Ah, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Got it. Sorry, I
Hey.
was judging. I was up here judging. White guy from Silicon Valley, your girls don't have access to education and computer science? What the fuck? Mine does. Okay. Nebraska. I don't have a reference point for that.
Yeah, I think there are, so if you look at Hadi Partovi and Code.org, he's trying to bring computer science to every single school, and that will happen over time. He's made tremendous strides, but part of it is like, hey, can we get it on the phone so that people can do it on the phone? It's cheaper, it's easier, and it's more accessible.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask one thing, and I know I'm, again, white male mansplaining to the rest of the audience, but I think writing is an important part of getting your perspective across, and I feel like there's not enough female voices in VC writing. I think Aileen sort of got some of that out there, but that's a relatively easy way, I think, for people to break in. There's a few folks on our team who I've encouraged to write, and they have.
Heidi's been writing a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's been getting a lot
Heidi
of
had a
attention.
great post about a month ago. So, and this is, again, across all, I think you have to make the role model visible. And so the challenge, I guess, to the few people who have had some visibility is to not be quiet and step up and make sure that people understand what's going on. And even if it's hard or scary for you, you have to be the pioneers to kind of do it. I don't know if we can do Title IX for VC, but, something.
It's hard because it's extra work.
Sorry,
right?
we got a question or comment over there. Kate, yeah.
Hello, hello. A couple things. First of all, Dave, thank you so much. Kate Mitchell, Scale Venture Partners.
Kate Mitchell,
nice.
a female VC
Yeah,
who
there's
makes
another one next to
decisions.
Heidi. Exactly. We all hang together here.
And also, by the way, pretty much wrote the Jobs Act with Naval, who's taken off, but
Yeah,
she had
exactly.
a lot of work to do with that.
Well, I'm taking on a new task, which is addressing some of the issues that you guys are talking about. I've returned to the board of the NVCA to chair something called the Inclusion and Diversity Task Force, because there is a lot of work to do here. And by the way, our focus is not just women, it is all aspects of diversity, but specifically to answer the question in the back, Black and Hispanic folks as well, so populations. And by the way, we're addressing and we're working on solutions right now to focus not only on our firms, you have to start at home though, so it has to include the firms, but also our portfolio companies. Data shown that as a board member, you have a huge impact on shifting the conversation within a company. Now, we're all about performance in Silicon Valley, so we don't believe there's a trade-off. We think you can be good, but also smart, and that's the objective for us, for our portfolio companies, and for our limited partners. But it's a real effort. I want to call out something for the audience that I saw earlier this week. It's still in private screening. It's a film called Code: Debugging the Gender Gap, I think is what it's called. So look it up online, Code: Debugging the Gender Gap. It's still in private circulation right now because it's going through its first showings and all the festivals. If you get a chance to go to a private showing, I really encourage you to go. It does start with little girls because the director found that her little girls early on opted out of computer science, even though we are so rich in computer science. And they interview at the very beginning of the movie all these really darling 6- and 7-year-olds, and they're asked to describe coders, and they all laugh, and they talk about they're geeky, and they have glasses, and then they say, and are they a boy or a girl? And they all say, boy, boy, boy. They assume that, so it does start early. Your experience with your 4 daughters is accurate. But it's also quite good. It does deal with diversity in addition to women, so I think you'll enjoy seeing that part of it. It is both hard-hitting about the challenges and also really starts to talk about a lot of solutions. I won't bore you with all that, but do see it if you can. I'm going to try to work with the NVCA and Silicon Valley Bank to try to see if we can do more screenings. I think you'll find it both, I found it very eye-opening, educational, dispiriting at certain points, but I sat next to 3 diverse middle schoolers next to me who practically levitated at the end of this movie. They were hugging each other because they felt they could do this. One was black and 2 were Hispanic out of a middle school up in Marin, and they were just so thrilled, and we just need to get more of that. So do go see it, and I think it'll really help finish some of the conversations you guys are starting.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for speaking up both today and other times, Ellen, and thanks again for kicking ass as a female role model, CEO, and investor.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Good to
Awesome.
see you as always.
All right.